belief, regardless of the evidence for its truth, and being open-minded. And there is this feeling, I think you're right, that that everyone's you're entitled to be a bigot, and I'm entitled to be. That's right. And look, you were rude. You embarrassed him. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm actually going to go the opposite way with this one. So, like, I like Clifford's idea, but isn't it a tad bit unpractical when you consider things like, now, someone here no doubt can give me the names of the actual studies. I'm looking at you, Jim. There have been studies that have shown that people who don't think rationally and aren't able to see flaws in their own arguments, that, like, essentially, if you are stupid, you are not smart enough to realize that you are stupid.
Exactly.
And likewise, there are studies that have shown that if you are presented evidence that contradicts with your evidence, you will more strongly believe your own evidence. So from a practical standpoint, wouldn't it be a bit dangerous to suggest that we should be very harsh on anyone who is thinking these things that are... Now, I'm going to agree that if you're not thinking rationally, you are thinking wrong. I'm not going to deny that, but there are enough people out there who don't or possibly cannot think in a rational manner. Wouldn't it be dangerous to suggest that we should be militant about our own beliefs in case there's more of them, and then they win out, and then we are the ones
militant about their irrationality?
Okay. Yeah.
So there's a very quick answer to that question, and it's not one to which I addressed my remarks.
Okay.
So you're asking the question: if you accept the important ideas that Clifford's putting forward as being true and significant, what should you do? And it might well be you should shut up, because if you propound them, you'll make the situation worse. You need evidence, which is Clifford's point. How you should proceed, whether it's better to, whether you created more animosity to liberal ideas and acceptance of the rights of homosexuals, or whether you created more tolerance or more intolerance, whether you educated people or entrenched them in their prejudices, is an open question. I don't know. My own hunch is, my own sense is that that we need lots of questioning and challenge in school, in our neighborhoods, in our own families. But if someone produces psychological studies that show that any one of the things that I think would be effective isn't effective, and that something else is, and if the goal is to change people's way of thinking or to change their way of behaving, or if there are other risks, a fascist backlash or whatever, then of course Clifford would say, well, look at the evidence, and believing something to be true doesn't mean that you believe that you should say it in any given occasion, or that you should say it at a convocation. I actually think it was great that you did, but someone could argue that it wasn't, and then we'd have to look at the evidence. And then next time, when the U of M is honoring some unsavory person, we'd have to look at that evidence and try to decide whether the best thing to do is to placard or demonstrate, or for the valedictorian to speak. My hunch is that it was educative, but I'm not sure about that. I'm sure you're right in your beliefs. Whether what you did was effective or not, that's a separate question. And for that, you need empirical evidence. You need to know about this society at this time, and how people generally react. And sometimes coming on all cannons firing isn't an effective way to persuade people. Being friendly, smiling, insinuating yourself, maybe even tricking them into, maybe even the use of deception might sometimes be, the roundabout. Those are all separate questions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Would Clifford say that having a correct belief, but with bad reasons, is also morally bad?
He does. He says this explicitly. He says, suppose I end up with, I persuade myself. He uses the example of a ship owner. Do you remember that? He uses it beautifully. I'm a ship owner, and I've got this rusty old ship that looks as if it's not seaworthy, and the cost of repairing it and making it seaworthy would be quite substantial, and maybe it does have a few more. So I genuinely, if you want to believe something, you can persuade yourself we've all had this experience. We persuade ourselves to believe something. So the ship owner persuades himself that the ship is really seaworthy, and thereby saves himself the expense of, you know, the hundreds of thousands of pounds or millions of hundreds of thousands, it would have been in Clifford's day, millions today, of repairs are not really necessary, and he sends the ship out to sea. Now suppose the ship sinks. Clifford said, clearly he's guilty of the murder of those men. But suppose his belief turns out to be true, and that against all the evidence the ship doesn't sink and arrives safely, and he saved the money, and the immigrants who are going to the New World all arrive happily, and so on and so forth. He's still guilty, says Clifford. He's as guilty as if it went down, because his belief was based not on the best evidence available, but on his refusal to look at that best evidence for his own comfort and the fatness of his wallet. So it's not so much whether you believe, you know, you can, life is short. You can only investigate so much. At some point you act on probability. You can get it wrong. And a person who acts on superstition can get it right. But on the whole, in general, you're more likely to get it right if you're conscientious. That's his point. Could I just make one final point? And I've already trespassed a bit into the next speaker on the agenda, so I apologize for that. And I'll just make one final point, and it's one that Clifford anticipates in The Ethics of Belief. I'll call it the theory of the little engine that could, on the supposition that you all know that child story. So there's it's Christmas, and the big engine has gone down, and the little engine has to deliver the toys, and it has to go over a mountain, and is chugging up the mountain, but it's underpowered. And but as it's chugging up the mountain, I remember reading this story to my kids when they were young. They're all nearing retirement. They're both nearing retirement age now. But so the little engine is saying, remember, I think I can, I think I can. So if you go into a job interview thinking I'll never get this job, if you go into a football game thinking, my God, we do nothing but lose, and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers playing this afternoon, for sure we'll lose a game. Chances are that can be a self-fulfilling prophecy, and so can believing that you'll succeed. If I meet you on the street, you're a stranger. If I think, this is a pretty unfriendly city, so I just walk by you as if I don't see you. And then, of course, you'll be unfriendly. On the other hand, if you assume, perhaps against the evidence, that other people are friendly and you greet them with a smile, that may be self-fulfilling, and you may your non-rational or your not evidence-based belief that you'll succeed may actually help you to succeed. So there are some circumstances in which it looks as if you might be entitled, but of course the question is, do we have evidence to believe that our own attitudes to our disease, or to whether other people will be friendly, or to our abilities? If you teach someone to think that they're stupid, you can stupefy them. And if someone feels confident, maybe they'll bring out the best, and maybe even better than the best. But we've got evidence for that. So behaving in this way is not behaving against the evidence, it's behaving according to it. Anyway, this is kind of a superficial, an important last point, and a superficial treatment of it. But thanks for listening, and thanks for inviting me. I interrupted a family picnic, so I've got to dash back, and hope that they'll forgive me for failing in my duty to my granddaughter and son. But I wish you every success, and I'm really thrilled that I didn't know that there was a Winnipeg Skeptical Society, but I'm delighted to know that there is, and that there are people who really care about rationality and truth and falsehood. So.